one of your most hectic busy times of year?
You know, it kind of hit earlier. It normally is.
Yeah.
We did all our virtual online programs and stuff, which was a really neat experience to do it that way. But of course, then the timeline is
Scooched up a little bit.
scooched up. So we structured everything differently as far as curriculum, moving the performance up, and then circling back. So it was a different year, but the production opportunity of doing it online and the creativity. It's always the last minute that's the longest. You're just waiting. Yes, that's what it is. All right. 6:30. Good evening. We'll call this meeting to order for USD 348 Board of Education. At this time, let's please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Before we approve the agenda, I just want to note that
We do have a board clerk available. She is joining us virtually versus on-site, so I don't want anyone to be concerned about that. We were aware that she was unable to be here. I also want to assure board members and the public that procedurally that's absolutely fine. I double-checked with Sam. Oh, hate it when I do this. Sam from KASB. That's Sam. Anyway, attorney. Yeah, just to make sure that that was okay, and it's completely fine. It'll just feel different. So we'll make sure I'll watch time when we go into executive session, and we'll all work together and figure it out. But appropriate minutes will be kept, and Board Clerk Megan Johnson is with us. She's just not here. Okay, so we need to approve the agenda, but I have two amendments. If you're okay with this, someone can just indicate so moved. But approving the agenda as presented with the following two amendments. Striking administrative reports, because that is actually the same thing as academic and social reintegration under new business. So it's just double listed. So striking administrative reports and adding announcements right before recognition. If someone's okay with that, you could just indicate so moved.
So moved.
Okay, Phil has moved that we amend the agenda with the two amendments of striking administrative reports and adding announcements right before recognition. Is there a second? Second. Andy has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. And bear with me, guys, because just in case there are any glitches, I need to record, just have a double recording of motion. So, all right. At this time, I move we enter into executive session with just the board members to discuss personnel, evaluation, pursuant to the exception for non-elected personnel under coma, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 6:38. Is there a second? Second. Phil has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Aye. Motion carries. We'll go into executive session. Thank you.
And I was like, why are the
This time with Mr. Dorothy, pursuant to the exception for non-elected personnel under coma, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 6:55. Thank you, Susan. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Okay, motion carries 6-0.
In a year, we've had about 4 or 5 across the board. And I think check is all that we have.
On PCK all by herself.
Oh, really?
So I'm so curious, like, everything that's going on there.
Oh, God, he's been watching.
All right, I move we enter into executive session with Mr. Dorothy and Mr. Bland to discuss personnel pursuant to the exception for non-elected personnel under COMA, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 7 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Phil has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. 6-0, executive session until 7. We will call this meeting back to order for USD 348 Board of Education. Welcome this evening. We have a few announcements before we get to the consent agenda. Actually, excuse me, we'll do consent agenda first, and then we'll do announcements and then recognition. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please? Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
Second.
Phil has seconded. Okay, so Chris has moved and Phil has seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Thank you. 6-0. Motion carries. Okay, a few announcements. Just to remind those who are watching at home or here in person, just procedurally, our board clerk, Megan Johnson, is with us. She's just with us virtually. And so notes are being taken. The other thing is I want to remind board members to please identify yourselves before you speak so that people at home know who you are and who is speaking. The next thing, I want to make sure and remind folks about the 12 days of Christmas holiday meal bundles that are going on through the district, through Food Services Director Nicole Burnett, excuse me, and that is available tomorrow from 3:30 to 5:30. Also, going into the break, Mr. Dorothy shared an email, I believe, I can't remember if it was this morning or it seems so long ago, but various food resources that are available throughout Douglas County throughout the holidays. If people are watching at home, that email went out. In addition to that, many of those same resources are on our USD 348 website. So we do have a period of time where we're going to be out of school. In addition to mental health resources are also listed there for anyone who needs to utilize that. We want people to know that that's there. And the last thing is our BNN YouTube channel that's put on by Baldwin Bulletin Online. They're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so if you haven't done that yet, please do so. All right, that takes care of all of our announcements. With that, we move to recognition time, and I see we have lots of guests here tonight, which is wonderful. This is always our favorite part of the meeting, I think. That's safe to say. How we'll do it procedurally, guys, and ladies, is that as we go through each, we'll ask you to come and spread yourselves. And since Megan's not here, I'm going to take pictures. So there'll be a little bit of me scooting back and forth, or maybe somebody else could snap it. Actually, if somebody else could snap pictures, we'll figure that out. And with that, the first one, certificates. I don't have certificates to hand you tonight, but Megan said she would put those in the mail tomorrow. So what we'll do instead is we'll do some awesome elbow pumps, okay? Great. All right, first up, with literally holiday cheer, Jana Craig Hare was responsible for that pun. I can't take credit for that, but I thought it was amazing. The BHS cheer squad. So they are here tonight because these ladies, and I believe you all received your trophy from Mr. Stavanis, our athletic director, last Wednesday. Is that right? I thought I saw that. So cool. So the BHS cheer squad are state champions. So how fortunate for us. 2 months in a row, we've had the opportunity to congratulate state champions for Baldwin High School. Rocking. And so the actual competition was the 4A Acacia Game Day State Competition. And my understanding is that involves several components, and you're scored on. And our Baldwin High School cheerleaders are our state champions for this year. Their coach is Patty Lenning. And so what I would like to do, Patty, if you wouldn't mind coming forward to the microphone here, I just would like the ladies to come up too so that each of their names can be announced, and then we can applaud for all of them at the end and congratulate them, because this is an extraordinary achievement. This was a virtual competition, so everything had to be submitted virtually after months, starting clear back in the summertime of practice. And these ladies, I know the time they put in. It is a lot. It's daily, it's early in the morning, it's late at night, and everything in between. So I wanted to make sure, Patty, if you could call them up one at a time, and then we'll give them a gigantic round of applause at the end, okay? Nope. Okay. Let's start with freshmen. So if my freshmen can stand up, I think we have some sick too. So Ainsley, I'll go start with Michaela. Michaela Brown. Okay. Ainsley Weiss. And at home we have Jaden Wharton, Maddie Washi, and Reagan Bosch. Okay, can my sophomores come up? Riley Epperly, Kate Nichols, and Aubrey Taylor moved after state to Lisa Massa. She was with us at state, but not here. Juniors, come on up. My big group. Yes, and Memphis Harmon, Gracie Bryan, Izzy Holdman.
Keep scooting.
Yeah, keep going. Tabby Jabot. Maddie Wolfolk and Charlie Spark. And seniors. And my captain, Jalen Murray. Jasmine Rose Rupert. My other captain, Alexis Peoples. And Bailey Holst.
All right, so Baldwin USD 348 celebrates and recognizes excellence in all forms of education. And so on behalf of the Board of Education, we congratulate 2020's 4A state champions. Well Thank you, Susan. Assume the position, ladies. Yeah, I know. I'm like, where's the parents?
Come on, guys, get in there.
When I was in high school, none of these rules.
Great job.
All right, the next recognition we have on the list is for Charles Reynolds. Charlie, where are you at? I saw you earlier. There you are. If you want to go ahead and come forward, and I will tell folks about it. And is Miss Bailey here?
See if she forgot.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of do this together because she was next on the list. Excuse me. So Charlie, this is a big deal. He won first place for the Douglas County Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge, and with that, he received a $500 prize. Is that wrong? Oh, excuse me, 1,200. Excuse me, 1,250. That's huge. And your teacher, as a result of you being the winning project, your teacher leading that also received a prize.
Yes, 500.
And that was the 500. Thank you. I got that mixed up in my mind. So, and I've known Charlie for a long time, and he's one of those individuals. You know, if you subscribe to Gardner's multiple theory of intelligence, which I do, there's lots of different kinds of smart. And Charlie has always been book smart, but he's also clearly been very smart in the area of entrepreneurship and creativity. And those are two different forms of intelligences, but he has merged those together clearly in a very effective way, resulting in a first place prize. His project and business in the Entrepreneurship Challenge is Timberline Timepieces. And would you like to step towards the microphone and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. It's over here. And if you could just explain, I've looked at your website, but if you could just sort of explain what that's about to us, that would be great.
So simply put, I'm selling high quality nature-inspired timepieces. My website's timberlinetimepieces.watch. So if anything you find there is for sale, support, debit card payments, PayPal, whatever. So fully functioning.
It's really good stuff. So you can see why it won. And so, Charlie, the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, December 21st, 2020, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates you on your first place win. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, you're not getting out of here without that. All right, there we go.
I'm smiling.
All right, and again, congratulations to his teacher, Ms. Bronte, as well, for being the lead teacher on that project. We will get those certificates to each of them. The last one for recognition tonight is for all substitute teachers, well, everywhere at all time, but specifically substitute teachers who have served this district. We've been very fortunate that we've always had a lot of people who have been very committed to that. Of course, with 2020, for a very understandable and variety of reasons, keeping substitutes, depending on health considerations or a multitude of other reasons, that's just been hard this year, and we don't have a deep bench. No district is sitting around thinking, oh, what are we going to do with all these subs that are waiting for an assignment? Nobody's in that boat. Nobody has a deep bench. But what that means is that we did want to take a moment to be particularly thankful for the substitute teachers who are helping this district to stay operational. Having visited all the buildings, every single day is a logistical crossword puzzle of who's covering here, making sure there's the appropriate supervision, with certification considerations. I mean, all of that's being managed every day. And it's so impressive. And filling in the gaps when needed. And the substitutes who have continued to keep going. Again, I'm thankful for all the substitute teachers, and I know we all are, even if they decided not to come back this year. But if they're doing this year on top of it, just an extra special thank you. So, the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, December 21st, 2020, the Board of Education wants to recognize, congratulate, and thank the substitute teachers who have been serving this district. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, and that concludes our recognition portion of the meeting. Public comment. Do we happen to have anyone here for public comment? I don't believe so. I want to make sure and check the electronic public comment. I do not see anything that's come in. So it looks like we do not have public comment for this evening. So we'll note that. All right, moving on to financial report. Although before you do that, I'm going to come sanitize the mic. And with us this evening on that, we have Sean Gordon with the audit presentation, but we also have, I hate for you to have to do that yourself, I'm sorry. Cindy Frick, our Director of Financial Operations, and also impromptu microphone sanitizer. Thank you for doing that. Sean Gordon is here. He is our audit partner now with Gordon CPAs, and they were in a few weeks ago to do our annual CPA audit for the year ending June 30th, 2020.
Good evening, everyone. As Cindy said, my name is Sean Gordon with Gordon CPA. We performed the audit of this district for fiscal year 20, so I'll go through the audit report that you have in front of you or that you've seen in your agenda packets, just kind of section by section, so feel free to stop me if you have questions along the way. So starting with pages 1 and 2, this is the independent auditor's report. Here we discuss a few things, including management's responsibilities for these financial statements, and then our responsibilities for the financial statements. And our largest responsibility is to issue an opinion on the district's financial activity for the year ended June 30th, 2020. If you flip to the third paragraph on page 2, you'll see a headline there called Unmodified Opinion on Regulatory Basis of Accounting. That is just kind of a worthy way of saying that the highest and cleanest opinion that we're allowed to give under kind of Kansas guidelines, we issued for the district for the year ended June 30th, 2020. So it reflects very well on how the district's financial operations were managed during the fiscal year. Flipping forward to page 3, this is called the Summary Statement of Receipts, Expenditures, and Unencumbered Ending Cash. Here you'll see all of the funds of the district, along with beginning cash, receipts, expenditures, and then ending cash. And the district reported in the right-hand column at the very bottom, that is how much the district had on hand in cash at June 30th, 2020. Flipping forward, pages 4 through 11, this section is called the Notes to the Financial Statements. There's quite a bit of information discussed here, including information on the district's accounting policies, involvement in the Capers retirement program, and then long-term debt information. And I did want to point out on page 8, the first paragraph, when the district issued the Series 2020 GO bonds in May of 2020, the district saved $133,000 in that refunding issuance. So again, another highlight for the fiscal year 2020. And then the final section in your bound copy that you have in front of you is pages 12 through 37. And this section is just more detailed breakouts of those funds that you saw on page 3. On most of these pages, there's a comparison to the budget that was adopted for fiscal year 20. And there's also a comparison to the prior fiscal year, which was fiscal year 19 as well, just for comparison purposes. For the audit, we had no audit recommendations this year, which again just reflects how well the internal control and financial management system is being taken care of by Cindy and her staff and anyone else involved in the internal control process. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Does any board member have questions? Doesn't appear so. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Thank
and
you.
Also, Cindy, where are the words? This should have been on recognitions too. But let's take a moment to say in common phrase, major props to Director of Financial Operations Cindy Frick and staff, because the audit to get that designation is no small feat. It's a great thing to happen in any year, but in a year like 2020, when we know many districts struggled procedurally for all the obvious reasons, the fact that this ship continued to be very tight says much. And I don't hear very many organizations that are talking about anything regarding saving $133,000. Plus getting everything done in a timely manner, despite the enormous challenges to the workday, to everything about normal processes, and knowing that those things were conducted in a financially secure and responsible way. This is a glowing thing on any year, but on 2020, it's not just a home run, it's a grand slam. So I want to thank you for that. Yes, I mean, we can applaud that.
Just say especially to my staff, because it's really because of each of them, and the audit process does include the school activity accounts. So at each building we have a bookkeeper taking care of the things that happen on the school level as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anything we need to do in terms of approving this?
Yes, would you mind approving the June 30, 2020 audit?
I move we approve the 2020 audit.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Susan has moved and Tony has seconded that we approve the June 30th, 2020 audit. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0, again with many thanks. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Thank you, Cindy Frick. All right, moving on, have removed administrative reports, so we will go now to old business. Diversity and Inclusion Committee update. Mr. Brown.
Sure, real quick. We met at the beginning of this month, December, and we are moving forward on 4 different fronts. 3 of them trying to get these ready for sometime next semester, and 1 that's a little bit more long-term. So one of the things that I'm working on is trying to set up a meeting either collectively with the entire committee or with myself and Mr. Brittingham with Mingano at Baker, so we can discuss some of their efforts and maybe piggyback on some of their ideas of ways that we are trying to promote diversity and inclusion at Baker. Second thing we're working on is we're revising a explicit statement on diversity and inclusion from hopefully from the board that was given to us at the beginning of December, and we're looking at it. Hopefully we'll have that ready to go in January so that the entire board can look at that. But we want to make sure that we get the wording right to our pleasure before we present it to the entire board. Third thing that we're working on is trying to modify an equity rubric that Susan found for us on looking at curriculum materials, and trying to get that in a format where we can involve some of the teachers in the district and looking at their curriculum items, specifically their textbooks, to look at diversity and inclusion issues related to those. I want to be very careful about that. Anybody who's listening at home, I'm not trying to create more work for teachers to do during this very difficult time. But we do need to look at some of the textbooks that we're using to see where we're at in terms of what they look like in terms of diversity. The fourth item that we're working on is a little bit more long-term, is trying to develop a potential course at the high school level that might address some of these issues. And Mr. Brittingham is helping us look at those issues, but that's probably not going to be obviously for the spring semester, but we'll probably be looking at that for the next school year. We are still accumulating data on suspensions and any kinds of disciplinary actions to make sure that we are being equitable in those actions, and so that's a process that is continuing. So that's where we're at. We hope to have more information in January.
Thank you very much. You guys have really, it's just not something you can just throw together. I appreciate the process that your committee has engaged in and being really thoughtful about identifying the tasks. So thank you for spending the time on that. We appreciate it, and we'll look forward to hearing back in January. Okay. New business. First item is the Douglas County United Command, the masking requirements for activities update. Mr. Dorothy, I'll let you speak with us about that, please.
Yes, if you remember last month, most certainly the Unified Command came out with a recommendation for wearing masks during activities. So I thought I'd go through a little bit of background on that, because I know there is some feeling that that's just a recommendation and not really a mandate that our board could do something with. Most certainly when that was presented to us, there was a lot of concern from the medical people on the Unified Command that our numbers were spiking. They had a strong feeling that athletics across the county was part of that reason. Not all of it, but part of it. And they just felt like some changes needed to be made, and basically it was presented to us. Either you're willing to make some of these changes, or we will do a health order and shut down activities across the county. That was how it was presented to us. So, most certainly as superintendents, our question was, okay, what is it going to take for us to be able to continue to participate? They then came in with the masking part of the gating criteria, which was across the board, green to red, that our students, while they participated in Douglas County, would wear masks while they participate. Not just only on the sidelines or while they aren't participating, but during the competition. And so it was either that, or they would do a health order and shut down activities across the county. Of course, when they go to a health order, it's illegal. That's a law we have to follow. So that was our choice. Most certainly, it was not left up for our board. And as the county has it now, that's the part that's maybe the communication piece, because people look at that and say, oh, well, see, it's just part of the guidelines and recommendations. But behind the scenes, it's not really a recommendation or a guideline. It is a recommendation, but it also has teeth behind it to say, either follow that, or we'll just create a health order and we'll shut it down. One other thing that I want to bring up, because this was a little bit of a question on it, and I don't know how people feel about it one way or the other. I just want to state what the answer was. Now, certainly there was concern that one of our universities, KU, why was KU able to continue and play ball games and not wear masks like everybody across the county? Good, legitimate question. So the answer is that there was a pre-approved plan, testing plan, that KU is going through in order to be able to play games without masks. And that testing is testing those athletes on a regular basis. It's fairly expensive, at least I don't know the cost, but I was at least informed it's not something a public school district would want to take on. And I get that. Most certainly KU is in a position to support that financially easier than we do. But, so the reason KU, the reason that was given, please, this is a messenger thing here. The reason that was given was that KU had a pre-approved plan so that they would do testing of those athletes before they ever stepped on the court to show that they were negative before they would allow them to play. That was the answer that the county gave us. And most certainly Phil was involved in getting part of that answer. Phil called and made the questions, and that was the answer that he got back. So anyway, just for those that question that, which I get it, I fully understand the optics of that, why the kids can't, but KU can. That's the difference in what we're being told. That's all I have, unless somebody has questions about those things.
So Phil Harvey, I can give you a little bit more insight since I spent probably about 45 minutes on the phone with Dan Partridge, just kind of discussing the idea about the masks and trying to understand what that meant like long term. So we're in orange, we get to green, and they got to reevaluate and have to wear masks. And his response to me on the phone was, well, I don't know, I don't have the game guidelines in front of me, I don't have them memorized well enough, but it seems like if we're in green, we shouldn't have to wear masks. So about 45 minutes later, I got an email back from him saying, actually, you're going to have to wear masks even when you're in green. So it seems like that's, unless they reevaluate it, that's going to be for the duration of the inside winter sports was to have to wear masks. So our office, Oral Surgery Kansas, is the provider for oral surgery needs for KU. So I have the KU physician's cell phone number. So I called him and said, hey, what are you doing for mitigation? Thinking maybe that'd be something we could do. And like Paul said, it was a pretty extensive process. They get tested 3 times a week. Each team that plays gets tested the day before. They wear those, like the Chiefs, saw the deal, the little proximity bracelets. They wear those sewn into their uniforms. And that's a Big 12 mandate, and so every Big 12 team has those. When they play out of conference games, they take the girls' set, or the girls take the guys' set, and they have a waistband that they put them in the other players to wear. They bubble their players. Anybody that gets test positive, if it's a single person, he used the term bubbling them away from the team, and contact tracing to find out. Anyway, so it was a pretty extensive thing, and then I couldn't find, when I was talking with Dan, I couldn't find in the health order where it was, and so he pointed out, it's like on page 7 at the very top, a little tiny paragraph says professional and collegiate sports, if they are able to come up with a plan that the county approves, that they'll say, okay, you don't have to play masks. So they carved out a little exemption for the collegiate level. And then there's one other thing I wanted to say. Anyway, so my hope would be that as the cases kind of get under control, maybe they reevaluate that and come back and say no masks necessary during play. But I have something else. Anyway, that's it, I guess. Until I think of it now.
So did anyone have any other questions about the masking rules for activities? I know the parents have probably asked, patrons have probably asked. So I just want to make sure we kind of said that tonight, and put it out there at least publicly. I know board members are trying to answer those questions themselves. Do I think, as Phil said, is there a chance for reevaluation? I think any of the things, there's a chance. I'm not saying they will do it. We could be in for this for the whole indoor season. I think when we go back outdoors in the spring for things like soccer and baseball and softball and track, I think they'll reevaluate and say, is it necessary for those outdoor sports? So I think we'll look at that again when the time comes. They were very concerned about indoor sports and what was going to happen with indoor sports because it's contained, and if you don't have really good systems to change things out, I will tell you that other than a handful, all HVAC systems got ionizers installed in them, and they're all running and working. Most certainly, Wilden is monitoring those systems for us to see how well that's working, how well the air is being changed out in our classrooms and buildings. There were, in the end, after all of this, they found 5 units, I think 5 or 6 units that we approved the other day, approved to go ahead and get those last ones done. Because we assumed the board would want us to just go ahead and move forward and get them all finished. So that's all there and has been operating since around the end of November, except for those handful of units. So hopefully it means that our classrooms are staying pretty clean air, as clean as we can make it.
I remember what my other thing was. So, and I think I talked to you about this on the phone, but when I asked Dan about the idea of it being a recommendation versus having teeth behind it, he really backed off from saying, "Oh, we're gonna, if you don't do this, we're going to make a health ordinance." So, I think that it sounds like a difference in how it was presented to you guys versus how his response to me was. Because I asked him, I said, well, what happens if we say, hey, we're in green, this is really silly that we're having to wear masks to play. And I said it was kind of presented to us as a board that would be something where there would be a health order written and we couldn't play at all. And he said, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think it's, he really backed off on that. So I don't know how that plays out, but I mean, that was the other thing I thought was a little bit weird, that he did not want to give it teeth at all for that.
And if I could just interject, that's exactly why I appreciate Mr. Dorothy just being transparent. With all of this, it's important with all decision-making processes to be transparent. And I will admit that's been my frustration, because I didn't even get anybody to respond to me, so good for you. That was the question I asked, because as a board member, I've received many calls. Kelly, I've called them, they said it's not a requirement, it's just a recommendation. And when in fact, if our superintendent is telling us that at the meetings they're saying it's a requirement, you know, that's what it is, and so we've got to do it. There's no bones about it. Because as superintendent, he wanted us to be able to provide activities. But so it's just important that if it's a requirement, say it's a requirement. If it's not, it's not. But I do think that's why it was important for Mr. Dorothy to address it tonight. Maybe it doesn't say it's a requirement, but that was the strong impression that was given, and I trust that information implicitly. I don't agree with how it was communicated at that level, but all we can do is be honest about that. So when patrons ask us and put us to task by saying it's actually not a requirement, well, it isn't, but it is. And I want to make sure if board members get those questions that you can answer that confidently. So thank you, Mr. Dorothy, for being transparent and just telling it like it is. So that helps us move forward. Okay, next item on the agenda is the academic and social reintegration for students returning to on-site at third quarter. And that's going to be Dr. Jana Craig-Hare is here to talk with us about that. Mr. Dorothy will also present with her. All the building administrators had submitted their plans, which thank you, Jana. Jana put it all in one place and sent it to us this afternoon, so we have one place to look at, which was very helpful. Thank you. With that, we'll turn it over to you, Jana.
Well, I'll lead in, and then I'll let Jana come.
That'll give me time to say
Jana come through on that.
Sorry.
No problem. So anyway, as the board had asked, they wanted to see a plan, which I did. So most certainly we sat down with the A team, and the discussion was, okay, we need to be able to show how we're going to work with these kids academically and socially as they really integrate in. So the way I presented it to A team was, we really need to treat these kids like new kids to the district. So what would you do for them as new kids to the district, especially if they transfer in from another district, and we're trying to place them in classes where they may be in a little bit different places in the other district. So that's kind of the way I asked them to do that. And I said, we really need to look at this on an academic level and the social and emotional needs that these kids might need, because they've been secluded for, you know, several months here, and now they're coming back into the group. So the other thing is they never got the beginning of the year discipline things, the handbook talk. They didn't get all of those kinds of things that we would normally have for them at the beginning of the year. So with that, I know the principals went to work in their buildings working on a plan. Those plans were sent to you. And so Jana and I just thought we'd summarize those a bit for you. So I'll let Jana take it from here to kind of talk about what those include and so on. So Jana?
Okay, so just kind of a summary overview of what you saw from each of the building plans. Like Mr. Dorothy mentioned, we are considering them new students. So even though there are students, they've been our students even through their whole career maybe, some of them even changed buildings over the summer. So they may be an 8th grader going to 9th grade, so they don't know much about the high school. So this is a new student type situation. So we need to make sure we meet with them, share expectations, share the schedules, share what our processes are in the building, just all of those pieces that students need to understand those. One other piece is that just overall, we can provide that a syllabus with a list of activities that kids have been doing online. So we can provide that to the classroom teacher. And at that point in the semester, when the semester ends, they're coming back on site with us, then we can say they got to step 122 or 249 or whatever it is. So the teacher knows the topics that they've covered through their SELLAS courses. This is all based on the state standards, so it's all the same standards, but our teachers on site may be doing things in a different sequence. And so we just want to know, we'll have that advantage of knowing where those gaps are. If my students seem kind of clueless on different topics, it's like, well, they haven't gotten to that one yet. If that's a foundational piece, the teacher can back up and make sure that they have that foundational understanding. We do have a couple pieces in place now, like with Algebra 1, where we're saying you need to know, I think it's factoring, I'd have to check with Amy on that, but you need to know this is really important. It doesn't come up till later in the Acellus courses, so here's some Khan Academy things you can do to catch up so you're not behind when you come back into the classroom. So we're already looking at some of those pieces as well. We know we need to identify those academic gaps, so we can do that through informal testing. We have some that are looking at doing map testing for that, others that are looking at a pre and post unit test, so that way they kind of know where the gaps are for the students per individual, which is just a good instructional practice anyway. Let's see, we also need the academic support. So some of our buildings mentioned like doing Tier 2 support. Once they find there are some academic gaps in there, then it's Tier 2 support in the classroom with different interventions, but then also it may be Tier 3 support with our reading and our math specialists working with those students as well. The social and emotional support will be meetings with the social workers, some well-being entry surveys that students can fill out, and then also like morning meetings. They can do a lot with that through the morning meetings and the second step lessons. And then we also have the care team meetings, and that's just part of the student support process for all of the building. So it seems like most all of them mentioned doing those. So that's kind of the overall reintegration for our students that have been remote and are now coming on site with us. There's about 70 some students in that category right now. We also have about 50 students who have been on site and are going remote. So it's kind of the opposite reintegration. So looking at something like that, we know we need to do an orientation, they need to get familiar with the Acellus, we need to work with the parents so that they have that piece as well of knowing what's required, what their supports are, what access they have to reports, and knowing where their students are at with their progress, pieces like that. So we know we need to do that again. That was probably a lesson learned from September when we opened up that window again and just thought, oh yeah, they'll figure it out, all their friends are on it. And that's not true. So we know, lessons learned, we'll redo that part of it. And then also as far kind of a reintegration, but we have students that are remote and are staying remote. So we also need to consider those students as well. And with those students, really for the most part, they continue on in their classes. If they're year-long classes, they just continue that course sequence. If it is, like at the high school level, we try to do semester classes. So if they took a semester 1 class, we'll put them in the semester 2 class, so that way they get their full credit for that one course topic. And then we have electives that we can add to. So I think that's all on the integration.
Does anyone have questions, concerns? I know you probably haven't had a ton of time to look at the plans, because I think they were sent to you in the last couple of days or so. So you may have more questions later. I understand that. We actually do not start second semester till January 25th.
Can you say that again in the microphone? So thank you.
Let me say that again. What did I say?
The reminder about second semester.
The second semester reminder is we come back to school on January 4th. That's the calendar. But that is still first semester. That's a change for everybody. But January 25th is when we actually start second semester classes. So all this switching back and forth will not happen until January 25th, not January 4th. So that happens January 25th. So prior to that date, most certainly we will be working to try and set up good integration for the kids that are returning, the kids going the other way and going out to remote, so that everybody's ready to go with the change that they've chosen for this semester coming up, for the spring semester. Chris said, looks like you're ready to ask.
I do have a question, yeah. This is Chris Perry. I was kind of curious if there's any sort of pattern in the movement between remote and in person, if it's broken up by grade level, any sort of observations you guys may have about those patterns that might be popping up that way.
Well, we've had a lot more fifth graders than we were ready for. But we kind of knew that when we started this, out of all of the buildings, Dan goes, well, as long as it's not too many fifth graders, we can make it work. And I said, oh, you shouldn't have said that, because then we got more fifth graders wanting to make the switch one way or the other than any other group. But the good thing is, I think we're in good shape on it. We had considered that we might have to consider an AB schedule. Of course, we'd come back and talk to you guys about that at the elementary level to make that work. It appears right now that the county is going to, for second semester, is going to relinquish that 17 in a class and move that up to 20. Because again, they're feeling like it's more important to have kids in school if we can keep them there. But they still wanted to leave a limit on that. They didn't want us to open up classes of 30 and 40. And, you know, so they said, we're going to adjust that to 20. That then will help Mr. Wall-Smith with fifth grade, because I believe he is at 18 and 19, which would be the biggest averages in the district right now. So we believe that all of the classes will work for second semester with the increase to 20 on the students per class. And that will still be following the guidelines and recommendations for what they put together. Does that answer? Okay.
It seemed like the trend was really a lot of elementary coming back on site, and then 8th grade and high school wanting to go remote. Spring weather coming up, I don't know.
Any other questions on that? I think the principals were pretty good on trying to figure out all of the things that we need to check on, not only the academics, but also the social part of it. I know that all of the buildings will be extremely happy. We'll have all our social workers back after the break. We were missing half of them for quite a while. But it looks like we'll have all of them back after the break, and that will be hugely helpful to them, as I know principals and counselors have been trying to cover for those duties during this time. And so I do think we'll be in better position to deal with some of these social and emotional issues for kids in the second semester or after we get back from the break.
One piece on the social integration part is that if I read the bill correctly, the moratorium on evictions have been extended through the end of January, I think. There was legislative intervention from the CDC eviction moratorium that is now extended through the end of January. And though I know in our community we don't have statistically a lot of that, also that number is greater than 0. And so what social integration means for kids who are in transit as far as where they are living and all that goes along with that. I know our social workers and our team are all over that, but I just ask that we keep a particular eye on that academically as well, because there are some who are moving around a lot or not in a stable one location situation. And that affects them whether they are a remote learner or an on-site, just as far as getting. So I know that we're on it, but I also wanted to just mention it as well as part of that.
Kelly, just a comment on that. It's a good point. Through the Unified Command, one of the subcommittees of the Unified Command is housing. And they have been working, the county will have a program. How much money they have total, I'm not sure. But they will have a program that can be applied for that will help families that may be facing eviction to try and support them for a while, or find another satisfactory housing choice for them during that time. And I had asked that the other day, and they said that there will be an application process. Is that open to everyone in the county? Yes, it will be a county program. So it won't be strictly Lawrence, it will be a county for anyone who's facing that issue. The challenge will be, who knows how much money they're gonna need to support all these people, and I don't know what their budget is to deal with that.
Thank you, Mr. Dorothy. Do board members have anything else on this for now? And we have some time still. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Paul. Okay, moving on then to board member input, co-op report.
All right, this is Chris Perry again. I'll be pretty brief as well. We're still down about 20% of the paraprofessional positions. That's better than it was earlier in the fall. So we're getting quite a few folks hired now. The only other thing I was going to mention here, and Susan has some more information too, but we were able to switch health insurance over the summer, which resulted in some pretty significant savings for for the co-op and for our employees. And last week we voted to extend a retention bonus to our employees. They all got either $50 or $25, depending on if they're full-time or half-time, which was a very nice holiday thing to have in the paycheck that way. So I just want to make sure you guys are all aware that there's 200 some odd employees that are with the co-op received that bonus, and we wish it could have been with a whole lot more zeros behind that, of course, but that was most of we had from that savings from the health insurance savings. So any other updates from the co-op? We had a very brief meeting last night, so it's not a busy time of year. Is that it?
That's all.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris and Susan. All right, miscellaneous. Does any board member have anything that would qualify as miscellaneous? All right. Superintendent's report.
Just wanted to report to the board and remind you that next month is our annual meeting where we do our appointments, designations, resolutions. That is in January. It used to do most of that in July. It's now gone to January. And that will also be next month is when you decide officers. Vice President and President, again, you'll vote for that in January again. So just a heads up that that's coming here next month. A few things we still do in July, a few things, but most of it has now shifted to January because of the way the elections changed.
All right. Looks like that takes care of the regular part of our agenda. So I move we enter into executive session regarding personnel with Mr. Dorothy and Mr. Bland pursuant to the exception for non-elected personnel under COMA. And the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 8:05. Is there a second? Second. Phil has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. I move we enter back into executive session with Mr. Dorothy to discuss personnel pursuant to the exception for non-elected personnel under coma. And the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 8:18. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm gonna give it to Chris. Okay. Were you? Sorry. Next time. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. 6-0. Kelly moved, Chris seconded, 6-0.
Executive session.
We'll call the meeting back to order. I think we just have a couple things left, and one of those things is to approve the personnel report, unless anyone has questions about that we would need to go back into executive session for. I would just need a motion for approval for that.
I move that we approve the personnel report as presented.
Second.
Okay, Chris has moved and Phil has seconded that we approve the personnel report as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Any opposed? No. 6-0, approve the personnel report. Okay, so we're at the end here. Thank you, Kay, for all the technology and the sanitizing and all the other things you've done. Lights and cleanup and setup and all of that. This is our last board meeting of 2020. Yay, yes. We're all like, yes. My wish for students and staff is that this break is a time of rest and peace after a lot of work and a lot of trial through adversity. But we also recognize that the holidays are not always a place for rest and peace for students and staff. It isn't always the case for everybody's situation. And so for those students and staff whose safe place is not home, I hope they'll remember that there are a lot of people in this district that care about you and will be looking forward to seeing you, whether in person or virtually, when you get back. So with that, this is our last meeting. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
A motion we adjourn.
Second.
Phil has moved that we adjourn and Susan has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Meeting adjourned.